Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from a Frontier. Hope the week's gone well. Let's go on to Africa. Support, get out, the crowds chanted, referring to the Rapid Support Force in Sudan under Hembeti. This is a report on Reuters. Then Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, who's been on a tour around the region, the head of Sudan's ruling Transitional Military Council, arrives in Mecca. And listen to what this woman's shouting, Madaniya, a popular chant calling for civilian rule. I quoted Antonio Gramsci the last time I wrote about Sudan. I said the crisis consists precisely in the fact that the old is dying, like Burhan, and the new cannot be born. And the worry is that we go down a Al-Sisi MBZ wormhole in Sudan, and that won't be good. China has a plan to retaliate using rare earths that's locked and loaded if things escalate, tweeted David Inglis. And I responded, Dear David, cannot be long before the president of Burundi finds the geopolitical jackpot and is miraculously rehabilitated. They've got rare earths in Burundi. Zimbabwe stock market is on the rise again, and that's a bad sign. In this skewed market, equities climb when Zimbabweans fret about inflation. And similar things happened in Venezuela, and basically the stock market is up 58% this quarter. That took me back to the parabola. It's a curve each of them feels unmistakably. It is the parabola. Zimbabwe, Africa Confidential, readying for protest. Mnangagwa tightens the noose on civil activists to distract attention from the faltering, I would say, collapsed economy. The five were picked up at the airport returning to Harare from a conference in the Maldives and have been charged with plotting to subvert the government. As we said yesterday, Zambia's Eurobonds reached another grim milestone yesterday as their spreads rose to a whopping 2,000 basis points over treasuries. 27th of May, I said markets across the world shivered in May, some caught a fever, and some on the periphery have become as delirious as victims of cerebral malaria. And I said in that same article, the periphery will get smashed as we are seeing it unfold in Lusaka. Have a look at those spreads. It's just unbelievable. At 22%, the yield is 20 percentage points more than US Treasuries. Only nations already in default, such as Venezuela, have dollar spreads and yields as high as Zambia's. Argentina is in the second worst position among emerging markets, still current on their Eurobonds, according to JP Morgan, and its average spreads are roughly half of Zambia's. Downgraded the country to Caa2, 8 steps into junk. IMF saying the economy will grow at 2.3%, the slowest in more than 2 decades. Reserves have fallen 50% in the past 3 years to just $1.4 billion. Government's attempt to seize copper mines from Vedanta has only added to investors' unease. We do not think the government will default on the Eurobond coupons in 2019, especially as half of the $237 million of coupons due in 2019 has been paid. However, recent events do increase the probability of default in 2020 and in subsequent years. RenCap. Finance Minister Margaret Mwanakatwe told State TV Wednesday that Zambia had made progress in talks with China to convert the dollar into yuan. She also said Zambia and Chinese central banks were working on a memorandum of understanding without giving further details. I said, this looks like a cashew nut moment for President Lungu in the matter of Anil Agarwal of Vedanta and the liquidation of his copper mining business there, and his thinking that he was going to flip it immediately for a tidy profit. Look at they've now warned Konkola Mine, saying it's a warning to foreign investors. They're becoming very dug in. Look at this chart from Sun Chartist. He's calling it the last defense. That's the price of copper. Government's chronic shortage of cash has resulted not only in late payment of salaries for public servants, but also in a 4-week default on a large loan repayment for new equipment for the armed forces. David Mabuza's strategic maneuvers challenge both his boss's authority and the plans to reform the economy. It is more like a chess championship than a wrestling match, said a close observer. This is the very powerful ANC operative who's been likely to be appointed or has been appointed the deputy president, and saying it limits Ramaphosa's freedom of maneuver. South African all shares up 5.62%, dollar versus rand 14.81, Egyptian pound 16.779, Egyptian EGX 30 up 5.64% this year. Most of the companies you see here, they done close, he sighs. Long lines of lorries stretch like tentacles from Apapa port, the largest in Nigeria. Drivers doze in their cabs, feet flung over dashboards. Some sling hammocks beneath the chassis. Musa Ibrahim, an ebullient trader, says he has been queuing for 2 days. He gestures at empty buildings. Most of the companies you see here, they done close, he sighs. Nigerian economy is stuck like a stranded truck. Average incomes have been falling for 4 years. The IMF thinks they will not rise for at least another 6. Unemployment 23%. After growing for 15 consecutive quarters, inflation is 11%. 94 million people live on less than $1.90 a day. I wrote about this when I wrote about the elections and Baba goes slow. And I was saying that, in any other country, there's no way an incumbent would have won this election. Nigerian all shares minus 0.56%, lifted by the introduction via listing of MTN. Ghana Stock Exchange down 1.48% year to date. The head of MTN Group's Ugandan business has been allowed to return to the country and is expected back late on Thursday, more than 3 months after he was deported. This tweet is from Najib Balala, joined His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta and the Prime Minister of Yemen for iftar at Jamia Mosque. And I was on the 15th floor looking down as they were speaking, and I took a little 10-second video of President Kenyatta because I could hear it up there. What's not to like in the World Bank's DPF concessional credit to Kenya, 30-year repayment period, including a grace period of 5 years and interest and other charges of just 2% per annum? That's a sweet deal. Kenya fresh produce platform Twiga Foods aims to disrupt African retail. They want to go to Dar es Salaam, Lagos and Addis Ababa. A banana in a Nairobi supermarket costs more than a banana in London, while the average income of a consumer in the UK is 30 times compared to Kenya, says Peter Jonjo, Twiga's co-founder. Many Kenyans in the Nairobi metropolitan area, which has about 6.5 million people, spend an average of 45% of their disposable income on food. For us, the icing would be Lagos. We will remain very centric to big urban cities, density, because that's where the problem is biggest. The company has raised $35 million from VC in convertible notes since inception in 2013. This year, Twiga will conduct a second round of financing to fund expansion in Nairobi and another round in 2020 for growth outside of Kenya. We have a good captive audience of investors we can walk this journey with. Nairobi all shares up 6.86% this year. The NSE 20 is down 6.15% this year. I wish you a great Madaraka Day. If you get the chance, do dial into our show, which is at 8 to 9 p.m. every evening on Metropole TV. It's called The Smart Investor. Thank you for stopping by.